Welcome to It's Not Really About Dance, a podcast on all the things we're learning about raising healthy, happy, and wholesome kids and teenagers in today's world through the context of competitive dance. I'm Beth.
And I'm Sarah, and we believe that competitive kids activities are about way more than performance or awards. They're about teaching resilience, humility, confidence, and heart. Each episode will use the context of dance to dive into real talk, practical tips, and stories to inspire you to parent with purpose. Well, hello, and welcome back to It's Not Really About Dance. Beth, how are you today? How's life going in these weeks between dance competitions? We've had a little downtime.
Yeah, I think we record these on the weekends, and this is the first normal-ish weekend we've had in a while because last weekend was Easter weekend, which is really big for my jobs.
Yes, for sure. Husband and I were cleaning out our garage earlier today, so it's felt like the first weekend that we've had time to just like handle some household chores. I feel like we've been going since spring break till now, pretty much.
We really have. And we're going to be doing that for the
It's
next
coming
several
back.
weeks as well. I told my kids this morning, like, I will probably be busy from now till school gets out, but then we can do fun
Then
things
we can
again.
be fun again.
I mean, not that the things we're doing now aren't fun. They are, but they're scheduled.
Yes, scheduled fun.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, well, welcome back to our episode today. This episode is going to be part of our Comp 101 series. So really that means we're just going to be diving into kind of the basic explanations of things you might see at a dance competition. So if you are new to this dance competition world, this is a great episode. Hopefully we can kind of clarify some of these things because it can all be very confusing and different sometimes, even from event to event. So this week, we will be going through the different types of routines that you might see at a dance competition, or even you may be in the season where you're close to getting casting for the upcoming competition season, or auditions may be coming up. I know our studio, we just got casting for next competition season. So sometimes being able to decipher what these things mean is helpful as you're looking forward to what's coming up in the future. So we're going to try to give you a little bit of a decoder for that and help make sense of some things that might be confusing. But if you have not listened to episode 6, in that episode, we took a deep dive into different event types, and that might be helpful to give a listen to before this episode, just for some background knowledge and context.
For sure. And I feel like when we get casting, or if you're sitting in a competition and you're listening to them announce the different types of routines that are coming on the stage, it's kind of like somebody took a set of descriptor words and put them in a grab bag and just took them all out. Last year, I said I feel like I was just reading a big list of the mix of the words teen, junior, lyrical, contemporary, and jazz, large group, small group. And it was just like, mix and match them.
It's like those refrigerator magnets where you can like put them together and make a different sentence. It's like that, but for dance competition styles.
Yes. So generally, when a routine is described, in our case, and I mean, I'm going to assume that it works kind of this way at other studios. I don't really know, but we get sent a list of types of routines that our kids are cast in. And so it might say something like, you are in a junior lyrical large group, or it might say you are in a teen contemporary line. And so they don't tell you from the beginning, and some studios may, but we don't know what the song is going to be or anything like that. So it's just sort of a set of descriptor words like that. I know my first year doing this, my daughter, it was like her 2 routines that she had were a mini contemporary small group and junior production. And I was like, I know what 0 of those mean. She didn't even take contemporary dance at the time. And I had to like ask somebody what contemporary was. But yeah, so it's like a set of words that describe. And when you go to an event, every time someone's coming on the stage, the announcer will name those things also. They'll say, we've got a senior jazz line. And at some events, they even have a experience level in there. So you might have the word recreational or intermediate or elite or advanced in there in the mix too. So
Just more words to
yes.
make it
So
more confusing.
today what we're going to do is we're going to just like tell you what these words mean so that when you hear them, or maybe you're new to this and you get that thing that says your kid is in a mini contemporary small group, it means something to you. So the first one is the most basic, and it just tells you the age group. And so in our case, we'll hear either mini, junior, teen, or senior. Now, I know at events, they sometimes have subdivisions of those, but most studios are going to have pretty broad categories. Like, they're not going to get into the micro level of like preteen and mini teen and junior teen and teen
Pre-pro.
teen and pre protein, like all
Baby
those kinds.
teen.
Those kinds of things are not usually within a studio. Those might be at an event. Generally, it's mini, junior, teen, and senior. We talked about these previously, but minis are like your elementary school kids. Typically, juniors are like early-ish middle school kind of thing, maybe older elementary to early middle school. Teens are going to be your like kind of that 13 to 15-year-old range, 8th to 10th graders sometimes. And then seniors are your like high school kids. And so they will take an average of the kids in the routine. And so this is a little strange, but let's say, for example, you have a small group routine and it has 6 kids in it, and 4 of them are 11 years old and 2 of them are 12 years old.
Are you about to do mental math right now? Because I'm nervous for you.
So, you add up all of those and you take the average age. And obviously has a decimal point in it. So, you're going to end up with 11 point, right? And they drop the decimal point. And so the age of that routine is 11. And so whatever category that falls in, which for us would probably be junior, like it's going to be called a junior small group.
And it can vary from event to event.
So that's a pretty straightforward one because you're talking about a bunch of 6th graders in a routine together. But a lot of times it's more broad. Like in a production, you might have kids from age 7 up to age 18 because the production is like everybody in the studio is in that. And so at our studio, which is large and traditionally has a lot of high schoolers that stick with dance all the way through, our productions, if you were to average the age, like I know when my middle was in 2nd grade and my oldest was in 5th grade, they were in a production that was my 7-year-old was with high school seniors. And that one would have probably averaged out to age, I don't know, 12 or 13.
Mhm.
And so whatever category that probably counted as teen, it competed as a teen production. But you have other studios who might average all those ages and they have a younger studio in general. And so even though they have high schoolers in it, they have a lot of little bitties and only like 2 high schoolers. So sometimes their production will categorize as like junior, which is like 9 to 11-year-olds. And so it's very interesting because our studio got really big and we got to the point where we would have a junior and a senior production. So the minis and juniors, there's about, 60 or so of them. They're in one routine, and then the teens and seniors, another 40 to 50 of them are in another routine. And so our senior production obviously competes teen or senior, but our junior production, it's all 7 to 10-year-olds in the dance and they compete junior, and then some other studio might have everybody in theirs and it competes against them. So you can sometimes feel like we're dealing with different ages here.
Yeah, if you see like a 17 or 18-year-old doing all sorts of crazy turns or something in the production and it's going as a junior production, that can feel weird if your 10-year-old or 7-year-old was just on stage right before them and you know that they're directly in competition with each other.
Especially if it's a true junior production where it's only the little kids. And bigger events tend to have bigger studios and you get more matched with that, but you just never know. We had an event a few weeks ago so the junior age group is interesting because that's like those 9 to 11-year-olds, middle school, or 10 to 12, just kind of depends on how you break it down. We had an event that we went to and there was a small group that Jose and Panchito, our little guests that were here, they're in a small group that's all fourth, fifth, and sixth graders. There's 8 little girls that are that age. And my little Jose is a sixth grader that's about 4'9", 4'10", little thing. Then they're competing against a routine that averages out to age 11, but actually has like 6th to 8th graders in it.
And it's their age as of January 1st. So they could actually be
Mostly be 12.
12 if
Sure.
they turned 12 after January 1st.
Yeah. So like our routine has 4th through 6th graders, little ones. And then another routine, small group they're competing with might have mostly 6th to 8th graders, but they compete against each other. So it's very interesting when you see these things on the stage. But yeah, so those are the routine. That's the first descriptor, is just your average age of whatever routine it is.
Okay, so the next descriptor after, I think it's easy to think about, is like how the announcer is going to say it. So they're going to first say the age group of the kids, and then next they're going to say the style of dance. So I'll just give kind of a quick review of this. We have touched on this again, episode 6. We kind of went into a deep dive about what these different styles of dance mean. But typically, the most common things you'll see at a competition are jazz, which is just like it's usually to an upbeat song, fast paced, jazz moves. Lyrical is going to be pretty ballet based. The music usually has words and they are dancing in a way that interprets the meaning or the feeling of the song. Contemporary is to lyrical. Sometimes those things can kind of be very parallel, but contemporary music often does not have any lyrics to it. Sometimes it can, and it can be a little bit more combined with something else. I mean, I feel like contemporary kind of blurs the lines a little bit of some things, not quite in the way open does, which I'll talk about in a minute, but contemporary, you can insert some more, maybe even like hip hop style things or more jazz moves or something like that into contemporary. Hip hop is more like a street style dance. It's often more controlled looking. You'll see a lot more dance moves that have a lot of more muscle control, more sharp movements versus like pretty fluid movements in lyrical or contemporary. Tap is making music with your feet in the tap shoes on stage, which I will say sometimes tap can be. There was a routine a couple weeks ago that I was like, oh, wait, this is tap, because I couldn't hear that they were tapping. Like sometimes they'll mic the stage so you can hear the tap shoes better. But sometimes if it's a smaller group or even like a solo, sometimes it's hard to tell if they're actually tapping or not.
I think some studios actually bring music that has like click noises in it, in the music.
To that, yeah, I
So
can
that
see
you
that. If they're
hear
younger
it.
too, it like helps you hear it. Musical theater is going to be more Broadway style. It's telling a story. They're often playing a character. You may even see them like in a recognizable costume for a character from a movie or a Broadway show. They often will mouth the lyrics as they're dancing. So it's very much more Broadway leaning. Ballet can be on flat ballet or it can be on point, either one. You don't see ballet quite as often, I don't feel like, at a dance competition, but occasionally there will be a ballet routine. We have one this year, but it kind of competes contemporary. So
It competes open.
Open.
Yeah, that's our category for it, because I think the reasoning behind that is most studios that are going to compete ballet are going to go to ballet competitions like YAGP, Youth America Grand Prix. That's like it is
For ballet.
For ballet. And most mainstream dance competitions are going to have mostly these others that you've talked about. Mostly what you see is lyrical, contemporary, jazz, and then a sprinkling, a little, like the next tier down would be hip hop, tap, musical theater. Like, so I think we are competing that ballet routine as open, I think, just so that we have others in our
the
category.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just like first place out of one every time. And
Right.
you don't really know.
You don't really have competition in that,
right.
in that
So
area.
competing open allows us to be like with other routines and like hold our own, as like open can be anything.
Yeah. Open is any combination of those other styles that we've talked about, or even some we haven't talked about. So it doesn't lean prominently towards any one style of dance. It is a mixture of things. Less common things that you will see are acro, which is short for acrobatics. Most competitions will allow a certain number of acro tricks. You see those really regularly in other areas like jazz or contemporary or lyrical. You might see someone doing an aerial or a back tuck or something like that. But there are acro routines that are primarily those acro tricks with some other style in between too.
It just depends what event you're going to. Some events like have a category for that and some
Mhm.
don't.
Yeah.
So kind of like the ballet thing, how we're just choosing to enter it in the open
Yeah.
category. Like I'm sure a lot of acro routines get entered in the open
Right. If
category.
there's not an acro category, you would enter it probably as open. Voice is one that is very rare, but that is where you would sing in addition to dancing. There was one at a competition we were at, but I didn't get to see it. Did you see it?
No, and I wish I had, and I still don't know what happened. Like,
Yeah.
if you have seen this in action, please reach out and tell us about this because we were so intrigued by this that somebody was competing voice at the dance competition that had like, I don't know, what were there, 500 different routines, and one
One
was
voice.
voice. And
Like,
I was just like, what? I
are
don't
they
know.
dancing and singing or
I
just
don't
singing? I don't
know.
know. I don't know. I hate that I missed it. We were doing like a quick change or something. So point, I kind of mentioned that, but usually if it's a routine that's competing ballet, it's on flat, and if it's point, they will call it point. And then there are some other random things that don't fit into that category. Those are kind of the most common things that you'll see, especially jazz, lyrical, contemporary, hip hop being the main ones at most dance competitions. And then tap, musical theater, ballet, open kind of coming in secondary to those others. But there's I would say probably the most common, I think, is lyrical and contemporary. You think?
And then jazz
And
would
then
be
jazz would
next.
be a close second, but a lot lyrical and contemporary, I think, is just really popular right now.
And generally, if they're older, like teen and senior, you don't see a lot of lyrical. You see a lot of contemporary.
I feel like that's changing a little bit, though. In the last few years, I feel like I have noticed more senior lyrical
I love it. I
routines.
think it's
Yeah,
great. Yeah, I mean, I like the variety. I wish there would be more musical theater. That's my
I
favorite
know,
to
mine
watch.
too. I love those. Okay, Beth, so why don't you tell us what comes next in the descriptor sentence that we have? So we've had the age, the style, now what?
Yes, so you got that, mini contemporary small group kind of thing. So let's talk about what the small group part means. So the size of the routine is the next category. And so I'll give you a quick rundown of all the different sizes, and then we'll kind of go a little bit deeper into each one, if that sounds good. Okay, so if one person is in the dance, that is a solo. That's how that works. If two people are in the dance, it's a duo. If three people are in the dance, it's a trio. So those are like never going to change. Most events will group duos and trios as one category. So it's like they'll even announce it like that. They'll be like, we have a teen, duo, trio, contemporary, and you're surprised of whether two or three people are about to walk on the stage. So, and then it starts to be kind of new vocabulary. I will say not every single event is going to be identical for these, but they're going to generally be pretty close. So I'm going to give you some numbers and we're just going to say this gives you an idea. So I know that whatever number I say, you're going to be like, no, 11 people means this at this event. Yes, you're right. They change a little bit, but they're generally like this. So generally, a small group is going to have 4 to 9 dancers. So basically, it's less than 10, but it's not a solo, duo, trio. Your little cluster. Now, a routine with 4 dancers looks very different from a routine with 9 dancers, especially if they are older. Our oldest 2 girls are in a small group this year that when you look at it on stage, they're scattered and use the space so much. I would have sworn it was a large group. There's 9 of them. So it's a small group. A large group means 10 to 15 dancers. So that's next size up. A line, again, these start to get a little blurred, but I'm just going to give a basic idea. Generally like 16 to 24. So it's like more than 15, but less than 25. That's your line. And those feel like the big groups. And then production is 25 or more. So that's kind of like the everybody dance. So to tell you a little bit more of kind of what these look like and just kind of how studios generally tend to place kids, a production is going to include either everybody in the studio, like literally every kid, or in our case, when my older two were in 2nd and 5th grade, we had a production and we had grown to a point at that point that there was like 80 or 85 kids on the stage. Crazy. Like when we would watch that and they all wore identical costumes too.
You could not find your kid at all. I didn't even try.
Sometimes they wear like different costumes because there's a big theme usually. A lot of times there's a huge story. They can be musical theater a lot of times. So that production, I remember going to the first event and like the camera guy was trying to figure out where he's supposed to watch. And you just see him like ping ponging back and forth with his camera, like, oh, they're here now, they're here now, they're here now. Cause there was a lot going on. So that's like an everybody dance. We reached that point where we had like 80 or 85 kids. And then the next year it's like, okay, we're splitting this.
Yeah.
So we have a junior production and then a senior production.
At some point, you just run out of space on stage. Like,
Yes.
it almost always in these productions it'll come in waves. Like, you'll have groups that dance together, which would be about the size of a large group, and then they like come on and off the stage in waves. But then typically at the end, it's like everybody for like the finale. And I love it. There's so much good energy. But yeah, those stages are only so big, especially if it's one of those pop-up stages. And 85 kids is a lot of kids. There's not a lot of room to move.
Well, even last year, our junior production, one of our questions with Jose and Panchito last week was about the feathers. So the production, every kid had feathers.
It looked so good
In this junior production, bright colors. And I mean, how many of them were? There was like 50 kids.
It's a lot.
That were all aged 10 and under on the stage at the same time. And it was so fun.
They're like sparkly and feathers, and it was really cute.
The energy of those routines is amazing. And we some years our studio will do it differently. Some years I think there was one, it was your oldest was in maybe 6th, 5th or 6th
The junior
grade.
production, the first year we did?
No, it was not a junior production. It was a production, but they did not include the minis in it.
Oh, yes. She was in 5th grade. No, 6th. She was in 6th grade.
So it's in the past. It was a Wicked themed production.
But it was before the movies came out.
Before pre the latest craze of movies. And so we had a Wicked themed production, and it was basically ages 10 and up were in it. So like the elementary school kids, most of them were not in it. And they kind of had another like line or large group that they did that was their biggest routine. But then that production was just, there was like a cutoff point and up, and we just got casting for the upcoming year, sounding like we're going more that direction next year. Yes, where there's only one production, but it doesn't include the youngest kids. So I guess whatever surprise theme we're going to find out about is going to be a little bit more geared toward not itty bitties, if that makes sense. But yeah, so that's one size. Okay, so productions are the big. And then some studios aren't big enough to have more than 25 people in a production. So they might actually have something that feels like a production, but it's a line. So it's a little bit smaller and it includes everybody. Or in our case, because we're a little bit bigger team, our lines are generally everybody in one age range.
Like so, all the juniors.
So we'll have a senior line, a teen line, a junior line, a mini line usually. And it changes from year to year, like what style of dance they give them, or they might do both. Like I think are the 2 big junior routines this year both lines? They call those both lines?
Yes. Yeah.
So Jose and Panchito are in a junior lyrical line and a junior jazz line. Yes. And so those have like everybody in that 10 to 12-year-old age range.
But we did not have a production this year. So
that's the trade-off. Yes. And so those are those big group routines. I like those because you get a lot of energy, but it's geared just toward their age range.
I think they're really fun to watch.
And especially when you get to the high school age, it has that kind of dance team feel a lot of times, especially if it's a jazz line. If it's a musical theater one, it feels like a production. We've done some contemporary lines that have been really cool, and open ones that have been like some of my favorite routines.
I always am most impressed by these because it's so many dancers when you can tell that they have worked so hard to get that routine really clean and they're all together, that is so impressive to me because it is so many people, which is a lot harder to do when you're having to be precise at the same time.
Yeah. But the thing about those big routines is you can kind of hide
You
mistakes.
can.
They're big enough. So that's a segue into large groups, I think are the hardest routines to excel at.
Yes, agree.
10 to 15 dancers is hard
Mhm.
because that size is small enough that you notice mistakes, like every kid is seen, but large enough that you have a wider range of skill usually. Like when you get down to a small group, it's like you've honed in on kids that dance similarly,
Mhm.
similar skill level. You can do similar experience level, all that kind of stuff. Large groups tend to be a little more inclusive. I know, again, every studio does this differently, but our studio tends to use those as the kind of routine for kids who are like carrying over from a previous year and have been together. So, I mean, it's not always that's not always true. Sometimes it's intended to be a line, but there aren't enough kids in that age group.
Mhm.
You know, it's like this is our mini line, but we only have 14 minis. And so it's actually a large group, mini large group.
Yeah.
But a lot of times if it's older kids at our studio, it's just how they've done it, is it'll be like all the kids who were on the team last year and are back might be together in a large group.
Mhm.
And there's like some history, some training that they've experienced together, some journeys they've taken as dancers together. And it's like, what's the next frontier for them is kind of what they'll do with the large groups. But I will say, I feel like, again, we're not really about the scoring. That stuff doesn't really matter. We want our kids to just grow and learn a
Mhm.
lot. But generally, our large groups don't score as well as our other routines because of the nature of just what's involved with that.
And some studios I have noticed just from being at competitions and watching a lot of dance is their team in general will be split by skill level, but I know we have seen studios that had, like, a production or a line for every single age group. So it wasn't even necessarily that they were a big enough team that they had a senior production, and a teen production, and a junior production, and a mini production. So it just depends on your studio and how many kids are on the competition team.
That's very true. I mean, there's a really great studio that we saw recently competing that's a newer studio and they're really solid, but because they're newer, they don't have a ton of kids. So even their routines that include everybody are like large groups. And I think about like the TV show Dance Moms, like which I don't TV editing, who knows how many people were really on that on that team, but the team they would take and would show you on TV was not a lot of
It was
kids.
always a small group.
Yeah, it's like that was everybody. And so that they weren't ever doing lines, which I think all of that is TV editing. I'm pretty sure they had
Oh,
a
probably.
lot of other kids that danced with them and they just didn't show us those routines.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure they did. That would not even be a successful competition program if all they had was those 5 kids or
Especially
whatever it
because they
was.
they ranged from ages of like 8 to like 15.
15? I know.
It was
That is
always
so weird. Like, now when I go back and, like, think about that, when I watched it before I had dancers or knew anything about this, I was like, "Okay," but now I'm like, "This is bizarre. Nobody does this."
yeah, like so if you don't know this world but you're basing it on the show Dance Moms, like just be aware that like there's weird shadows of that reality being, but it's not really how it works.
There's almost never a small group that has an 8-year-old and a 15-year-old in it together.
No, the only times I've ever seen it done is if it's like we had one last year that was really sweet that was like seniors in high
Yes.
school with their little
If
sisters.
it's, like, part of the story or makes sense for the song, if there's a reason, it's never just like, "Here's a jazz routine with a 15-year-old and an 8-year-old."
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've done productions are the giant ones, lines are like big, big. I think of those like the machine dances,
Mhm.
like clean, one skill level, but very sharp usually or very synchronized. Large groups, again, those are the ones that are like s- smaller, but
But not small.
not tiny. Small groups, I feel like are the most like very personal. Kids grow a ton when they're in a small group. They form such good team bonds in a small group. This is again 4 to 9 dancers. And so the people that they're in a small group with become their closest friends in life.
Yes,
I
agree.
mean, they're rehearsing together. They're like having to learn to work with each other so well. And like, again, they're usually pretty equally matched in skill level and age. It's just, I love small groups for what they do for our kids and the way they shape them.
And that feels like, I mean, it's all being part of a team, but the small group especially gives them such a sense of like, what do they contribute to the group and how can they cheer each other on for what their friends contribute that's different from what they bring to the table. And it's just really cool to watch.
Yes, and it's fun to watch with even within our studio, like, my oldest had about a 4-year run with basically the same kids in her small group, and they just would have a different style of dance every year, and it was so fun to watch them try different things and explore different parts of who they are, and then as they got older, because of what happens and they're pulled in a lot of directions, and some of those kids ended up doing more activities through school and couldn't commit to the competition team, and some still dance to some degree but don't compete and like all that kind of stuff. So there have been other kids that have kind of trickled in, and like our oldest two are in a small group together this year that is that's kind of a new blend.
Yeah.
And then they're not next year.
Next year, it's different, which
Everything is completely different for next year. I'm really excited to see how all that plays out
I think
because
is really interesting because I'm learning that as they get older and they are skilled in lots of different dance styles and they're learning to dance well with people who aren't a similar dancer to them, that they're able to kind of branch out and be matched with other people, which is cool and a good opportunity for them to learn to work with different people because that's what professional dancing is like. You're not always with the same people.
yes, and I also think the older they get, the more age gaps are narrowed.
Mhm.
So, like, our oldest, they're like 18 months apart.
Right.
So, when they were younger, they weren't even in the same dance company group.
Right.
And the last 2 years, they've been in the
They've been
same
together.
classes. And then this year, they're in a small group together. And it's just like those kind of things get narrowed. And I know, like, there's some kids who have been together a lot. And then somebody that's like 2 years younger than them joining up next year.
Yeah.
Because again, when they were younger, that was a bigger gap.
Right.
And now it's not so much.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Whereas, like, my oldest dancer, who will be in ninth grade next year, has, like, 2 seniors in her small group. So
I don't even know. See, we just got casting. Like, we don't know who's
and I
in
don't
what
even
right
know
now.
I don't even know everyone who's in there. She told me that and because she was just so excited to be with those people. So I was like, "Oh, that's so neat. Like, you've never been in a small group with those girls before," and she looks up to them so much. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, as a ninth grader and be with seniors, that's really fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and so then we have duos and trios. This is a really challenging size dance. Only my oldest has done this.
Our studio doesn't do a lot of duos and trios, just kind of historically that has not been
It
as
depends
common.
on the year too.
Mhm.
It's like we've had some years where we have a lot of those. We've had 0 this year. I don't think we have any next
think
year.
there's
I
any
haven't
next
heard of
year.
any. So it just depends. But you have to get spacing just right. As you can imagine, like when you're looking at a stage, if there's a whole group, they kind of like can spread pretty evenly a little more easily. And then if there's one person, obviously you just own the stage. But if you have 2 or 3 and you're off center or in a or not like equally spaced, it's like weird. It is so
It's really
noticeable.
obvious.
So they're having to think about another whole layer of things. They are dancing together in a way, almost the pressure level of a solo, where if you mess up, it's all on you. But also in a solo, if you forget your dance, you could
You can
improv
make it
and
up.
make it up. But with your duo or a
You can't
trio,
do that.
you can't do that. And so I think, I don't know, but I think duos and trios may be the most challenging dance size
I
to
think
do.
so. Yeah, probably. Neither of my girls have ever been in a duo or a trio, but I'm sure that as a parent, that's probably pretty nerve-wracking to watch, just, like, thinking about everything they have to navigate in that.
I mean, it is. And I think we shared a story one time about my daughter's trio last year, and she couldn't hear the music when it started,
Mhm.
and she was in the front, and like she couldn't see that she was off kind of thing of the mute, and she couldn't follow anybody.
Yeah.
And it really stressed her out. But like that kind of stuff, yeah, you can like feel it when you're watching them on stage. But it also gives you something. And the kids generally, if they do a duo or a trio with somebody, they are like bonded for life.
Yeah.
I mean, they have
So like
done
trauma bonding.
they have done something major together.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool. Okay, and of course, the last one is the solo. Solo, everything hinges on you. This really showcases a dancer's strengths. It showcases their personality. Sometimes they choose a style that they are super strong in because that's their best. Sometimes they choose a style to be stretched in because that's what they want to grow in that year. I know some studios will allow for 2 solos so that kids can do both of those things. Our studio does not allow for that. If kids have a solo, they have 1 solo. And it's also a lot of studios handle this completely differently. I mean, there is just such a span. Like sometimes you are able to do a solo if you want to do a solo.
Right. If you're willing to pay for it, you can do it.
You opt in, you say, I want a solo. Sometimes you can choose your choreographer or request a choreographer.
Or even choose your music.
Request a style. We know somebody who they are able to even like suggest a song that like we don't have any of that. But I do think it's very common. I've heard of a lot of studios that like if you want to do it, you apply to do it. You can express an interest in a type of style that you're interested in going with. Our studio has changed throughout the years how they handle this. So we've been caught in the middle of that transition. So my oldest had a solo as a 5th grader. And at that stage, kids, when they did their normal competition audition, might get chosen for a solo. It's like a surprise. Like, just like when you find out you're in your production or whatever else, it was like, oh, and by the way, you're in a solo. And I was very surprised. I was not expecting it for my 5th grader. Not that it had never been done, but
it wasn't as common.
Yes. But there was a cluster of, I think, 5 or 6 of them that year, her age, that all had solos. And they each had a different style of dance, so they didn't have to directly compete with each other. It was the most she's ever grown as a dancer. And it was a huge pivot point for her. I am so grateful for that year that she got to do that. But since then, they haven't had young kids at our studio doing solos. So they have to be a 10th grader and then they can express interest and they have to actually like prepare something and come and audition to specifically for the solo.
Right. It's separate from the audition for the rest of the competition team.
Yes. So like my oldest this year is going into 10th grade. So she went and prepared and she chose some music and spent some time choreographing herself and was so proud of like
very cool.
what she created to like showcase like who she was and kind of the vibe she was going for. And then she's been partnered with a choreographer to kind of like match that. Not exactly. I mean, because she did something kind of like a edgy contemporary and like a blend fusion musical theater contemporary thing, which was really cool. But her piece that she's gonna have next year is, I guess, a little bit more traditional contemporary.
She's really good at that though, so I'm sure it'll be great.
Yes. And so anyway, but that like is kind of the approach. Like you may be able to have a say in it or you may have no say in it, but it's basically it's a high pressure situation where score is on you. And so it really like does a lot for a kid.
I'm gonna hot take for a minute and say that solos for minis are a waste of time. I said hot take. But I just feel like that's a lot of pressure on a little person. And at that age, they're all able to do pretty much the same thing. I mean, you may have a random kid who is, just a crazy 1 in a million talent that is so good. And I'm sure that they grow and I'm sure that they learn something from it. But it's very expensive.
I think that's the biggest thing. It's extremely expensive.
Because not only is it you're the only one to do the dance and it's all on you, it is also you're the only one to pay for it. There's no splitting of the entry fee that happens with the bigger groups. It's all on that one family to pay for that solo. So it's very expensive.
Yeah. So what Sarah's referring to is if you are in a routine, you pay for a choreographer to choreograph that routine. And that cost is split between the number of people that are in the routine
So if you have 50 people, you're paying 1/50th of the
of the cost.
choreographer's fee.
Whereas if you're a soloist, you're paying the entire choreography fee. And then entry fees at events, they're also tiered in that way, where a routine that has more people, it's less per dancer. If you're entering a solo, you pay a higher amount to
Mhm.
enter. So it is very expensive to have a
And
solo.
it's per event.
Yes,
Per
every single time.
routine, per event
The choreography fee is a one
is
time.
one time, but your entry fee is per event, per routine.
Yes. So the little ones competing, like, there's a lot of perspectives. I mean, I totally see the angle of like when they're not so self conscious,
Sure, yes. Go ahead
get
and
them
develop
out
the
there
confidence that early.
and work that muscle. And that's part of why I'm grateful that my fifth grader did it. Because going back to our like child development hat, fourth and fifth graders are the most confident that a human ever is.
Yeah.
Like, your fourth and fifth, that's like peak confidence level. Are there kids that have struggles confidence at that age? Of course, yes. So there's exceptions. And some of that is like life situations can come at them at that time frame. So yes, there are exceptions. But in general, those like third, fourth, fifth graders are very confident. And so I'm actually grateful that by the end of elementary school, we got to go for that and like
Mhm.
kind of work that a little bit before. Cause if you throw a 12 or 13-year-old on for their first
Oh,
solo, that feels like it would be a train
yes.
wreck. So I get that there's a gap there. It's like if you haven't gotten them in when they're 10,
Right.
you might as well just wait till
Wait.
they're in high school.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so our final descriptor of routines. This is only present sometimes. This is not at every event. In fact, of all the events that our studio is attending this year, this was only a thing at one of them, and it was at our competition only event. So this is having an experience level attached to the routine type. So in general, as with all the other things we have said, this can change based on event. But in general, there are 3 levels. There's recreational, intermediate, or elite or advanced, depending on what they call it. So these levels are dependent on 2 things typically. The amount of hours a dancer is in the studio. So not just working on the comp routines, but the amount of hours they are in the studio taking other classes as well, and the number of years of experience they have on a competition team. So, recreational or beginner is usually less than 3 hours a week at the studio and 2 years or less experience on a competition team. Intermediate is somewhere between 4 to 6 hours a week at the studio and 3 to 4 years experience on a competition team. And then the elite or advanced level would be 7 or more hours a week at the studio and 5 or more years experience on a competition team. So you can kind of figure the math is going to land certain ages automatically in certain experience levels, because if you have a kid who's in second grade, then they probably have not been on a competition team for 5 years. Like you're just not going to have a 7-year-old who is considered an elite dancer. But in reverse, I think is where it becomes more interesting. If you have an older dancer who is newer to dance, they could compete intermediate or recreational, which we see a pretty good bit of actually. So it impacts the scoring is kind of the biggest thing. So I know at the event we were at most recently, the lower your experience level is, the wider your range is for each of the scoring categories. So like this is where it gets kind of
Why don't
confusing.
we talk in terms of like school grades? I think
Okay.
that will be easier for people to understand. This is
Okay.
not actually how it's scored, but think like in terms of like making a 90 or above being an
Yes.
A versus if they require it to be a 95 or above to be an A.
Yes.
That's kind of the difference.
That's a great analogy. Yes. So if you're recreational, which actually you are so great and you have the exact thing on here. Hang on, let me
I
look at
pulled
it.
the requirements from a recent competition that we went to because We just don't attend a lot of competition only events. We generally attend mostly competition conventions. And so, again, this doesn't exist at those. It's just like all you get is mini contemporary small group. All of a sudden, if you go to an event that doesn't do the convention classes and they have all weekend so they can spread out because they're not putting all that in.
Right.
They subdivide the levels and they start like separating out. So that mini contemporary, I'll give an example. My kid was 8. It was her first year on competition team. She was dancing about 6 hours a week. And so I think that routine would have been counted intermediate
Mhm.
because they were beyond the number of hours per week at the studio. But what we often see is studios that I don't know that everybody approaches that in the same way.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like our studio will air up.
Huh.
So it's like if half of the routine has kids who are newer to competition, but they're dancing a lot of hours at the studio,
They'll
they'll
bump them up.
air intermediate elite. Whereas I think some other studios are maybe weighing the number of years experience
Over the amount
higher
of training they're
because
doing.
it's interesting. I'll give a perfect example is like we saw a junior routine. I think it was like 9-year-olds ish. They had like 8 or 10 kids all doing triple turns perfectly synchronized.
They all did Firebirds perfectly synchronized.
Beautiful technique. Beautiful. They were so good and they entered it was recreational. Yes, which would mean 3 or less hours a week at the studio and 2 or less years experience, and I just haven't seen that
I
firsthand.
just don't know how you get that many kids to do that level of dancing as well as they did in less than 3 hours a week at the studio.
Sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, the levels impact your scoring. So, we've talked about this before in previous episodes, but when you enter a routine, you get what's called the adjudication. So, that's how your dance scored. This is like if we're doing the school analogy, if you made an A, B, or C, basically. The label changes. It's always some kind of precious metal or a jewel or a gemstone or a high gold, excellent platinum, elite, sparkle rainbow unicorn. The label essentially changes, but the level, recreational, intermediate, or elite, affects how strictly they are scored. So if you're recreational, the top adjudication, you might could get the highest level adjudication, but you scored a 90 out of 100. If you had an intermediate, it might take a
93.
93 out of 100 to score the top level. And then if you're elite, it might take a 98 out of 100 to score the highest level. So the more experienced they are, the higher their level of entry, the tougher they are scored. So it's harder for them to make that top adjudication when they are in that elite category. So there's a lot of debate about this, and Beth and I have our opinions about this and how it impacts things. Um, I do think on the one hand, it's good in a way that you don't have brand new inexperienced kids competing directly against the ones who are super advanced because they're never going to score as high as those kids.
In theory,
In
that's
theory.
that's the way it's meant to
Right.
be. I just don't know that it's done in practice or that there's a way that it's being checked.
Yes. I think that they're just counting on the honor system for people to input the level of experience that their kids have. And like you said a minute ago, I think a lot of studios are airing down where their studio or where their kids actually are. But to me, it feels like why would you not want to bump them up because they're going to learn a lot more from that situation and they're going to get better feedback from the judges and they're going to be competing against other routines that are more evenly matched to what they're doing. You're not learning anything if you're an advanced dancer, but you're coming in and you're competing intermediate and you're taking first place in every single thing. That's not giving you much feedback to work with in the long run, I don't think.
Sure. I feel like definitely if we have an opportunity and we can compete at a more elite level, let's go for it. Always. Once we're ready for that,
Right.
you know?
Yes. And I think that these events that have this, you end up with far fewer elite entries than you do the recreational and the intermediate. So in the scoring and when they do the overall scores, they're only going to do a top first, second, third place in a category if there are a certain number of entries. So for example, if you have a teen contemporary small group, they are going to go up against all of the other teen contemporary small groups for the top however many. If there's 10 routines, they'll usually do like a top 5.
And at a convention where there's not levels, you're pretty much guaranteed there's gonna be some other routines
Right.
in your category. And so it's like you feel like I just feel like honestly the awards don't feel as long.
Yeah,
That's what
yes.
it was. Or
Well,
like
because they've subdivided it down by more categories, so they have to go through more overall awards. It's like we got to do all the recreational teen contemporary
Sure.
lines, and then we have to do all the intermediate teen contemporary lines and the elite teen contemporary lines, and it just takes a lot longer. But when there's less studios who are entering as elite, if there had to be 2 or more in a category in order for them to have an overall award. So if there was only one senior elite jazz line,
they may even have to have 3.
yeah. I think it is more than it's gotta be 3 or more. So if there were even 2 senior elite jazz lines, no one's getting a first place.
And yet there's 20 senior recreational jazz lines. So they will call up a top 10. And so
Right.
it's like the top 10 of the recreational who are less experienced, less advanced, get all this stage time.
And a lot more recognition, and I mean,
Which is why it's a great place to go if your studio is a more recreation or intermediate studio.
builds
Because you
confidence.
don't feel like you're lost in the crowd. You get recognition because there's more people that are aligned with you. But what this has done as a result, I think, is all of the elite studios are just going more to the
They're not going to
conventions
these events anymore.
because it's like everybody's a level playing. It's like, well, if we're at the elite level anyway, we might as well go where we don't need a separate division to compete in that's like less experienced.
Yes, like we went to an event like this a couple of weekends ago, and my oldest daughter afterwards was like, "We actually did really well. We just didn't get the awards because there wasn't anybody in our categories," which is what happened. I mean, and again, we don't care about scoring
Sure.
or awards. No one is living or dying by this, and even our kids aren't either. But it is helpful to come out of a competition to know what you can improve on and what you did well and, how to move forward from those things. I mean, you're there for the feedback. That's the whole purpose of the competition. But she had kinda realized, like, I think at first on stage when their routines were not getting called for anything, for a minute, that's a little bit disheartening, but then as she thought about it, she was like, "Wait a minute, we actually, like, did well. There just wasn't anybody in our category."
Sure. And I think it's not even so much about like not getting recognized on the stage, is that again, you have to sit through 30 minutes of other people being recognized. And that you're just waiting through all of
Uh-huh,
that.
and yeah, and no one very few
You
people
never
from
hear
your
anybody you
studio
know.
gets
Yes.
called. Yeah, so that does make it
Or the
challenging.
other elite studios. It's not just our
Right.
studio. It's any elite studio is just gonna kind of have to do a lot of sitting around.
Mhm, mhm. So, yes, our casting doesn't tell us how they're going to compete.
No, because we don't go to many events like that anyway.
Right. So, yeah, I'm curious to know if that is at the studios who do go to those events, like, I wonder if they know up front, like, "Okay, your solo is competing intermediate or recreational." I don't know. I don't know how that works.
I think that some may do that because I know that I've heard some people share with me that are in other cities and states, like their kid has like one recreational small group and one intermediate small group. And it's almost like kind of orchestrated that way intentionally of like, here's your small group that's going to be more challenging. And then here's your small group that's going to be more comfortable. But if you're at a studio where you have a wider range of skill levels by age, I can see that maybe. I mean, I feel like any studio is going to have a range of skills,
Oh, of course.
but maybe ours isn't wide enough
Sure.
to separate out into those kinds of levels.
Yeah. And again, I think this goes back to the age of your team. If you have a lot of younger kids on your team, they're just naturally not going to have as much experience on competition team as if you had a team that skewed a lot older.
But our only groups that have competed recreational have been when we had that little bitty baby team that was like 4 to 7-year-olds. But even our minis were competing intermediate this year.
Yes. And I think our juniors competed intermediate too.
Sure. Well, there's a blend because Jose had it was like half and half.
Okay. I thought Jose's that competed elite, I thought skewed to teen.
Well, the event that had the categories, they were junior.
Gotcha.
And that's the only one we go to that does levels anyway.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if when a studio registers for this, and this is where I don't know anything because I don't own a dance studio or register people for dance competitions, but I assume that they have to put in their ages of the dancers in order to average the age of the routine, or do they just say,
I read
this is a teen routine?
I read this on
Because that would
the
take
one
forever.
that I pulled. Listen to this. Hang on. It tells you exactly how it does it. I think they do enter their birth date, and then they have to enter how many hours per week they are dancing, like by kid, when they register them.
That would take so long.
For real. Although I love data like that.
Oh,
I think
I
I would
do
be all over it. I would have the charts. I'd be all into it. But also, this is really interesting. I was looking at how they did groups and figured out levels for groups. It's like the computer calculates it. You don't even place it. So those studios we were seeing that were the kids doing triple turns and Firebirds all in sync that were 9 years old and it was recreational.
Right.
So that means that their kids were entered as whatever, and the computer called it recreational. But so the kids had to have been entered as recreational individually because this says recreational dancers are 1 point, intermediate are 2 points, and elite are 3 points. And the level with the most points in that routine will be the level the system will recognize.
So each kid is given a point assignment, and then it averages that.
Yes. If a group has 7 recreational dancers, that will be 7 points. If they have 4 intermediate dancers, you multiply by 2 because they're 2 points. That's 8 points. And then 2 elite dancers, you multiply by 3. That's 6 points. So that will make the routine intermediate. It's really fascinating.
That is really interesting.
But I like this that it weighs the elite higher so that if you have less kids that are elite, you still reach a threshold where that pushes it, to outweigh. You can't just stack it to say well, half the kids are recreational. It's still it's a neat system. I kind of like it. Again, this is a sample from one event that we went to a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if every competition works that way because, again, all the other ones we go to are convention competitions.
Yeah. There's definitely pros and cons to this level system. I see the argument for it for sure, but I do think that, like you said, if more studios who are competing elite came to these events, it would make it feel a lot different, but they aren't doing that. So when you are one of 2 studios who has anything entered elite, there's just not a lot for you, it feels like.
Sure. It just, again, you're getting stage experience, but that rush of adrenaline competition kind of stuff is not the same as it is when there's a lot of studios at that level. Yeah. Okay. Well, that is a good breakdown of all the things to describe what kind of routines you might have. So let's go ahead and wrap up like we normally do. So Sarah, it's not really about dance. What's it about for you this week?
This week has been about our summer calendar. I have done a really bad job lately of I feel like it's that time of year where you're finalizing everybody's summer camp plans and you're having to pay for all the things and make sure you're meeting your deadlines on payments and stuff. And as that stuff has come in, because we have been so busy since March, essentially, I did not put one thing in my calendar. And now stuff is popping up and I'm like, oh, wait, like, isn't somebody at camp this week? There's nothing on the calendar. So I spent a big chunk of my time going back through all my emails and making sure I put in our family calendar when people are gone and who has what thing, and knowing, what our summer schedule is kind of starting to shake down to be like, because we also have to register for summer dance classes soon. So I've just been kind of thinking ahead and trying to wrap my head around what our summer looks like. I always try to balance. I have had summers where I overscheduled us, and I have had summers where I underscheduled us for things. So striking the balance of what is good for everybody can be tricky sometimes. And I don't know that I've hit it on the head quite yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, I've been diving through all that too. I started looking at the summer dance stuff today. It was so strange. Like, my oldest has decided not to do a summer intensive this year, and she's done that the last few years. So that usually involves like traveling and setting up camp somewhere for like a week or two, and they just dance all day. And then you try to do some fun city things, but they're also tired from dancing all day. So it's just kind of strange. It's not really a vacation, but it kind of is. But we're not doing that this year. And so it makes the summer feel so different
Yeah.
to have. I mean, we're doing dance things, but they're not the like go and be away forever
Right.
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
we're not doing anything like that this summer either. And my oldest daughter has done that the last 2 summers and just opted not to do that. So, yeah, we'll see. It'll still be fun. I see a big long stretch of nothingness in the month of July, and that's when everybody at my house's favorite activity becomes pestering your sister. So we got to have some things in place to occupy our minds so that we're not doing that.
July is my busiest month of the year, so I don't ever have
'Cause you're,
that.
like, gearing back up for back to school stuff, and I'm not quite in that yet with teaching schedule. It's, like, the very end of July for me, but we make it till about July 4th, and then everyone has been together too much if we don't have enough stuff going on. So, I may need to, I don't know. I gotta get creative and find some things because we have already delegated all of our summer camp money to the places that it gets delegated to, so I may have to get creative on summer busyness activities. Although this past summer, my teenager just spent every day at the pool with her friends, so that's fine.
I like that they're getting old enough to be kind of self-sufficient. Even, we had this one weekend that we don't have major stuff, and when I came here to record, my oldest was like, "I'm gonna take a walk around the neighborhood." Like, got her AirPods, put on, a little tank top and some shorts because it's April and it's starting to
Mhm.
be warm, and she's like, "I'm just going for a walk." And I was like, "Love it."
The problem is
Slow down the
they
pace.
can't drive, so
Yeah,
that still is the challenge, is they
right.
just need rides places. All right, Beth, what is it about for you this week?
I guess kind of adjacent to that, it's getting warm and nice outside, and I have reached this point of like, we kind of hold up inside for so long and we were busy, and then it's like now that we can go outside, I want to be outside, but I'm just like, we need pine straw. This needs cleaning. This looks junky. Like, everything about my house and my yard, I'm just like, I want to instantly have all the money and all the time and
Yep.
all the like skill to just like Mary Poppins it into beautiful.
This is why I spent 4 hours taking almost literally everything out of my garage today and cleaning out and sorting and making it look nice again.
I am like, because of the way my brain works, I have to do things in 15-minute segments. It's the only way I'm successful. I know most people can find success in longer spurts of time, but I get really distracted.
Oh,
But
see, I think I get distracted if I do shorter chunks of time. I have to like hyper focus for a long time and just be done with it.
no, I can't do that. Like, even like in college, I would write papers in 20 minutes. It's like a coping mechanism for my brain. It's as long as I can focus. So I will get
Interesting.
so much done in 15 or 20 minutes. But basically, you can't do things like make your yard look beautiful or clean out a whole
Not in
garage
15
in
minutes.
those little spurts. And it's like I will end up doing like 12 spurts of 15 minutes in the course of a day, just like at different
Mhm.
times. And it makes me a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I would
Cause it's
not be
like
good at
those are the
that.
kind of tasks you can't really do in 15
Right.
minutes. So
No, I have to, like, carve out my day and be like, "I am spending the next 4 hours cleaning out the garage. Nobody talk to me." Because if I did 15 minutes, I'd then go in my house and be like, "Oh, I didn't finish this laundry. Oh, I need to pick this thing up. Oh, I need to vacuum over here. Oh, I need to put these clothes
no,
away."
that's
Like, I
exactly what I
that would
do.
make me nuts. No, thank
It
you.
like, on my day off, on my Fridays this is, like, getting real personal here, guys. Wow. Like, welcome to our world. I tell you, the kids went so personal last week on their
They
road trip.
really
I was
did. I
shocked. We
was
didn't
impressed with them,
if
though.
you haven't listened, go I was like, "Oh, y'all went deep and
Yeah.
serious and, like, vulnerable." So, okay, I guess it's our moment to do this. But, no, I just, like I have to do a rotation on my day off. So I will do a household up task for 15 minutes and then I'll do something at my computer that needs to be done. Like, oh, I didn't register for that camp or whatever, like that kind of thing for 15 minutes. And then something like to take care of myself for 15 minutes as like a breather, like a break.
Yeah.
So it's like two 15-minute things that are different and then a breather. And then two 15-minute things that are different. And that's how I spend my days when I'm home by myself trying to get things
That
done.
is really fascinating. I procrastinate and procrastinate and put stuff off until it starts to feel so daunting that I sort of shut down about it. That I just like, I've had task avoidance for so long that I then dread doing the task that really isn't that big of a deal, but I've like made it a big deal in my brain that I avoid it so much. And then I get so uncomfortable with how much stress it is causing me that I'm like, I just got to get it over with. And then I will hyper focus on it for however long it takes to do that task. And then I feel this immense sense of relief afterwards. Like I've avoided cleaning out my garage for 4 years and it took 4 hours and it's done.
That's amazing you did that in 4
Well, I roped my
hours.
husband into it, but between the two of us, we
I,
got it done in 4 hours.
I would love to watch him working on a garage for 4 hours.
He loves to throw stuff away.
I love it.
He does. In fact, there were things that I was like, "Wait, don't throw that out." Like, he was just grabbing stuff and putting it in a trash bag, and I was like, "Wait, what is that? Stop doing that." But, I mean, a huge chunk of it was church stuff from before we had a church building.
I've done that in the past year. I have brought, for people who don't know, our church was like portable, set up, tear down for over a
A long
decade.
time.
And we've only been in a building for a little over 2 years now. And so those of us who were on staff kept a lot in our garages, like when it wouldn't fit in wherever we needed to be.
In
And
the
then,
trailer.
or like 9 months before our building was open, the place that we had our office was having to be repurposed by the people that owned the building. And so we basically like were homeless for 9 months. And so we put everything in storage, but a lot was in our garages. And so
Mhm.
probably like 2 or 3 months ago, I started producing all these boxes with the people that work with me. Like, and they're like, "What? We got sand art stuff. We got magna doodles. We have a kiddie pool. We got a trampoline." Like, this was all in my garage, y'all.
Well, my husband's about to roll up in here Monday with a spike ball set and a couple of kickball sets and all the, like, fun outside youth
Yeah.
equipment games that have been hanging out in my garage. There's even like a scorecard where you like flip to keep score on kickball. We found all sorts of treasures that had just been like tucked away next to the Christmas boxes, and we were like, "Oh, look at that! We didn't even remember this was in here."
But yes, so we're in that mode, like very ragey, just like get it all.
Yes,
Cause I want to enjoy my space where I live, but I can't right now.
right. That's how I am too. Yes. Well, and we're having a yard sale next Saturday, so that was the other motivation was like getting all organized for that. So
Okay. Well, that sounds like a good way to wrap up for today. So, if you are not already subscribed to our podcast, we would love for you to do that so that every new episode will pop up into your feed. Also, feel free to rate and review. That helps other people see us and know about us. You also can follow us on Instagram at Not Really About Dance. And next time, we will be back with another Caring for Your Own Heart episode. And this one is all about leading or parenting through tryouts, auditions, and casting.
Well, that's a tough one.
Yes, and we're hoping to actually broaden this conversation a little bit beyond dance because I feel like we know enough about what our friends are experiencing on all different types of sports teams
And
as they go through all this.
'Tis the season for all of those things right now.
Yes, but it takes caring for our own hearts, whether you are a parent or you're someone who leads kids and is the like maker of the tryout list.
Yeah,
I can imagine that's a whole different thing. So, yeah, hope you'll join us next time. And until then,
Bye, friends.
bye.